Hello, Free Spirit Beaders, and welcome. I had to just change my orientation on the video, so I hope that those that were waiting on the other video will see that this one started. But welcome, Free Spirit Beaders. I am Kristen, and today we're going to talk about Kumihimo. So what Kumihimo is it is a Japanese word for gathering threads, and it's basically a technique that you do braiding with. Hey, Softflex Company, thank you for being here. I'm glad you found me. I was hoping that you get a notification I started a new video. So today we're talking about Kumihimo. I'm wearing a Kumihimo necklace here that's done with Softflex wire in the medium copper and the dragon scale seed beads. You can find this design in Seed Bead Revolution on page 46, I believe. 48. So you'll see that right here. There's the necklace I have on today. It's done with Softflex beading wire in the copper color, and here's everything you'd need, and all the instructions for this particular design is here in the book, Seed Bead Revolution. But today we're going to make a bracelet. So I've got a few things here. This is a Kumihimo disc. And we use a pretty thick one here at Softflex Company. This one's called the Double Density Kumihimo Disk. And we like it because the extra thickness, it doesn't bend as easily when you're working on it. And it just holds the wire really nice. You don't have to worry about the wire like splicing this particular disc as much as maybe with the thinner one. You might have some bending and some splicing going on after, once you use it for a while. So this is the 4.25 inch Kumihimo disc that I'm using today, round one. And we also sell a 6-inch double density round Kumihimo disc. The only difference is just the size of the actual disc. It doesn't affect your braid or what you're making on it at all. It's just what you feel more comfortable with. I like this little one. It's easy to travel with, but the 4.25 inch or the 6-inch, either one would work. And if you have a thinner Kumihimo disc already, you can still use it. We just prefer this one, so this is why we carry the double density disc. So we are going to be braiding Softflex wire, medium 0.019. I'm going to be using the colors from our Vitality Trio. So if you are not familiar with Softflex Company, we manufacture a beading wire called Softflex beading wire, and we make over 20 colors, somewhere around 26, I think is the number of how many different colors we have. And we have put together small packs of our colored wire in 10-foot spools called trios. Softflex Company just shared the link to our trios. Thank you for that. This one is our Vitality Trio. It uses red jasper, citrine, and imperial, butterscotch imperial topaz are the 3 colors in that trio. We have a special going on that ends today. If you were to purchase a multicolored trio pack, you would get a free Kumihimo disc. So today is, what's today's date? I should have looked at that before I sat down. 17th. Yes, today is September 17th. So until midnight Pacific time today, we have a deal going on that if you purchase a trio pack, you'll get a free Kumihimo disc. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and flip you guys down and show you all of the materials that I have here, explain what they are, and then we can get started. Okay, so we've got our Kumihimo, round Kumihimo disc. I'm going to be using these little Tri-Bead Czech seed beads for this design today. And I've got my wire. You're gonna need 8 strands total, and what we're gonna do today are 4 strands of red jasper and 4 strands of citrine, 16-inch strands, so we need 8 total. If you have a Kumihimo weight, I'm going to use one of these. This is optional, but it does help with your tension, so I do like it. This is a Kumihimo weight. If you have a tape measure or a ruler, that's good to have nearby. Now, these are also optional. These are called bobbins, and these are traditionally used when you're making Kumihimo with threads. I don't use them that much, only because Softlex slides a little bit off of it. So I'm going to show you what I do. I actually use these little mini bead stoppers, or you can use the regular size bead stoppers at the end of your wire when you've got your beads on it. Or if you have enough of the 10-foot spools, you can bead right off of the spool. So we're going to need 8 strands, so you would need 8 10-foot spools, but you could bead right, you can Kumihimo right off the spool. So that's another option. I'm actually thinking of even saving my 10-foot spools when I finish using them so that I can have some empty ones available for when I Kumihimo. But I didn't have enough for right now, so I'm going to use bead stoppers. We also need a cutter. So I've got my Softlex flush cutter here. Any type of flush wire cutter will work. You will need large 3x3 crimp tubes. I've got 2 copper 3x3mm Softlex crimp tubes. And to crimp those, you will need the Mighty Crimper. That is specifically for 3mm. You'll also need 2 small 2x2mm crimp tubes, and you'll need either the regular crimping plier for that size, or if you have the magical crimping plier, this is the magical crimping plier you can use for that size. Lastly, you'll need a clasp. I'll just have a simple lobster clasp that I'll use here, and I think that is it. All right, so this is the bracelet we're going to be working on today. I started this before, but I'm going to show you how to set it up. So the first thing you need to do is cut all of your wires. So I've got 8 strands here, 16-inch per strand. I've got 4 of the red jasper color and 4 of the citrine. And you're just going to gather your wires. Kind of straighten them all out. And if you have a Kumihimo weight, it has a little kind of claspy guy there. I'm just going to gather up my wires and tuck them right into my weight like that. Alternately, if you don't have a weight, you can use one of the large bead stoppers and gather your wires in that way. You could possibly tape them as well. Make sure it's taped well, and you want to make sure you have enough space that you can cut off that sticky tape part if you do tape them. And you can also knot it. However, again, you will have some bending in your wire if you knot it. So if you're going to knot it, you need to leave some extra that you can cut off the knot part. So I'm going to go ahead and put it onto my Kumihimo weight here. Just clamp that down. And then I'm going to stick my weight through the center. If you're using a bead stopper or tape or not, you're going to want to leave about 2.5 inches of a tail at the end so that you have enough wire to work with, like I did here on this side. But if you have the weight, you can just sort of clip it at the end because you'll have enough space between where you start braiding and where this is that you don't have to worry too much about your tail. So what I'm going to do to set this up is I'm going to take one of my colors and put it on the left side of this dot at the top, number 32, and take the other color and put it on the right side. So I did the red jasper on the left and the citrine on the right. And then I'm going to move over to the 8 dot, do the red jasper, and then one of the citrines. And then I'm going to come down to the 16 dot, and I'll do the same thing. Red jasper, and then citrine, and then come over to the number 24 dot. And then I'm just going to center my weight, pull all my wires down, and you want your weight to be kind of right in the center there of your circle. And pull all your wires down. So this is just called an 8-strand round Kumihimo braid. And you can change the look of your braid by changing how you do your colors. So for example, on the necklace I'm wearing today, here is another example of that, and I did this one just all with blue. So this is all just 8 strands of one color. That's the dark blue lapis color. And then this one today, I'm doing 2 strands, so you'll see there's more of a contrast pattern between the 2 colors. All right. How are we doing so far? Does anyone have any questions of where I'm at this point? Let me talk just a bit about the beads, because there's some options too for the beads. I like to start my braid without my beads on at all. So I will do my first part of my bracelet, braiding just the wire, and then we'll add the beads to the center. So I don't string any beads on my wire in the beginning. I sort of do my braid first, and then I'll string my beads. You can decide if you want to do that differently, and if you're working off of spools, you will want to string all of your beads first, because then they'll be on the spool themselves. If you're working off bobbins, you might decide to string all of your beads first as well. So right now I'm just going to get started with braiding the wire, and we're going to braid oh, this guy came out. Let me just put this guy back in. Make sure your clamp has all of your wires. Sorry, I'm just going to pull it off the camera for a second while I get my wires back in my clamp. I pulled it a little too tightly. So is Kumihimo something that's brand new to you, or have you seen it and heard of it? You just haven't done it yet? I'm going to go ahead and stick a bead stopper down just so that my wires don't fall out again. So when I put a bead stopper on, I put all the wires in and I push them to the back. And then you want to leave about a 2-inch tail right here. And now I'm going to put the clamp on the bottom of the wires. And this weight just gives your tension, really. Put that through the middle. And I'll just set up my wires one more time. So you're going to go on either side here, either side of the 8, either side of the 16, and either side of the 24. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start the braid. We are going to take the bottom left and we're going to move it to the left of our wire up here, and then we're going to take the wire to the right of the 32 and we're going to move it to the right down below, and then we're going to twist counterclockwise and do the same thing with these wires here. So we're going to take our bottom left, move it to the top left. We're going to take our top right, move it to the bottom right, and then just pull these wires tight. And then you're going to spin it. Take the bottom left, move it to the top left, take the top right, move it to the bottom right, and spin it counterclockwise. Bottom left, top right, bottom right, and spin it counterclockwise. And that is the pattern. So top left, bottom right, spin. Top left, to the right, and spin. So did you guys catch that? And that is all you do until you get your braid to be 2.5 inches. So you take the bottom left up to the top left, take the top right down to the bottom right, and spin. I'm going to go around a few more times until I get a little bit more of a braid worked up to show you. And I am using the Soft Flex Medium 019 diameter in red jasper color and citrine color. You could use any of those colors. You can even use different diameters. You don't have to use the medium diameter. If you have other ones you want to try, you can do that as well. It'll probably just make your braid a little bit more delicate, a little bit finer. So here's a tip. If you're in the middle of kumihimoing and you get distracted, you need to stop what you're doing, or you know, you have to get up and do something and come back. You take the bottom left to the top left and leave it there, so that when you sit back down, you know that this is where you left off, is bringing the right wire down here. And that is just a little tip from me leaving this many times. So if I left this like this, I would come back and know, okay, I need to take this one on the right and bring it down to this one on the right. If you walk away like this, you have a harder time understanding where you left off. So you would just want to put that in. And I know from experience, I do get distracted and things come up while I'm braiding, so it's nice to have that little tip to just do that before you walk away, so you always know to grab this one and bring it down as where you left off. Okay, so we have a little bit of a braid started here. Let me see if you guys can see that without me pushing on the table. So you'll see there's a little bit of the braid started right there. And how I like these little measuring tapes to have on hand, because this is how I just find out how long my braid is. You just thread your measuring tape in, line it up with a 0, and then measure down here. We're about 1 inch. Hello from Canada. Are you guys nice and cool there? Do you have some fall weather? I'm in Arizona and we're not quite fall yet, and we're really hoping for it. So I'll do a few more. Thanks for joining me this morning. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. I'm just going to put my 3 strands so that I remember where I left off. And you got snow in the mountains already. Oh my gosh. It was 110 here yesterday, so the idea of snow feels really, really foreign. It was just way too hot this weekend. It definitely felt like, oh man, come on, fall. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. And I'm going to add my beads. So for this design that I'm working on here, you need 96 of these Tri-Bead Czech seed beads. And that would mean you'd put 12 of them on each of your strands. So just for demonstration purposes, I'm only going to add a couple. Maybe I'll do 3 on each strand so that we have a few, but I don't have to have you sit here and watch me do all 96 beads. Okay, so what I do is I add the beads on, and then I grab one of these little bead stoppers and clip that to the end of my wire, pushing my wire to the back of the bead stopper so that it's in there nice and tight. If you leave your wire a little too close to the front of the stopper, it could easily get nicked right off. So I just put the wire in and kind of shimmy it, push it back to the back of the bead stopper, and then that's how my beads can just hang on the wire. So I'm going to put 3 beads on each strand, but for the full design, you'll need 12 beads on each strand for a total of 96 beads. I love these little triangles. And I really quite like the mini bead stoppers for this, but I didn't have enough. I didn't have 8 of them, so I'm doing sort of a mixture. So whatever you have is fine, of the big ones and the mini ones. But I think I need to grab some more minis from Softlex Company so that I can have enough little guys. So if you don't have bead stoppers, I would suggest you need 8 for going around your spool and then 1 down the middle. So I would suggest having 9 if you can. And I like the little ones for the wire, but I like the large one down the middle. Yeah, we like at Softflex Company, we like the double density disc just because it doesn't bend as much when you're working with the wire. The wire, you know, you want to pull on your tension a little bit more, and the wire is a bit sturdier. So we like using the double density one, but you can use any Kumihimo disc. You can use the thinner ones too without a problem. Well, this would be good if I put beads on it. There, and one more. Anyone do anything fun this weekend? I have a budding musician in my house, and so we went for an audition for him to see if he can get into a new group. And then after that, he wanted to use his birthday money to go buy himself his own violin. We've been renting a violin for him for the last 5 years, and he was finally ready. So he wanted to use his birthday money to go get himself his own violin. So that was sort of that was a big deal this weekend for us. All right, so now I've got all these little bead stoppers with my beads on each strand. And I know where I left off because I did the 3-strand trick here. When do I find out? They said early this week, so I'm hoping that we'll know tomorrow. It's a small group. They're only accepting 8 kids, so he's a little nervous that he'll get in, but if it doesn't work this time, he can always try again next year. So, but I was proud of him for trying, that's for sure. Okay, so if this is where I left off, I'm just going to grab this strand and put it back down here, and then we're going to turn it counterclockwise. And now from this point, I'm going to add a bead. So I'm going to take this strand here on the left, and I'm going to drop that bead, and you want to make sure that this bead falls below this wire here that it's crossing. So it sort of gets tucked under. You see how that happened? So if I pull the bead out again, you want the bead to go down into the middle and tuck underneath this wire here. And then you go up to the left, and then you're going to take your strand on the right top. You're going to grab your bead and drop your bead into the center. Make sure it goes underneath this cross wire right here, and you're going to pull it to the bottom right. And then you're going to turn counterclockwise and do the same thing on this side. So you're going to take your wire, drop your bead, make sure it tucks underneath this wire here, and then pull it to the top left. Take your wire on the top right, scoot down your bead, make sure it tucks underneath that wire, and bring it to the right. and then turn. So one of the reasons why I like to braid my wire first and then sort of add my beads and my bead stoppers at the second part is they get a little, you know, the bead stoppers or the bobbins or whatever you're working with can get a little tangled sometimes, so you got to be patient with it. And when you're just working with the wire without the beads and you don't have the bead stoppers on the end, it goes super fast and you're really not dealing with anything tangling up. So that's sort of why I like to do the first half without the beads on. And so you'll just keep doing this same pattern over and over again until you use up all of your beads that's on each strand. So once they're all done, then you can go back to just braiding the soft flex wire. And I'll flip it. Can you see a little bit how that's, you know what, I'll just show you on this one. This is how it looks once you keep going. And just to show you in the importance, let me grab this out of the way so you can see, move these guys. So that's how all of your beads look once they're on there. And just to show you an importance of how you need to tuck it. If you don't tuck it, if you don't tuck your beads underneath the wire like I was showing you, you're gonna end up with your beads kind of all over the map here and just sticking out in all different ways. Whereas if you tuck it, it'll be nice and straight and they'll all be peeking out in the same way. And also, I had this was my first one I did the other day, so it was kind of fun to make a few mistakes to show you guys. When using the weight, so when using the Kumihimo weight, you're gonna get a more consistent tension. And you can see on this one, I had some consistent tension on this side, but on this side, I didn't. So that's why my wire has gotten a little more twisty on this side, is just based on your tension. So that's just something to look out for when you're working, that if you know, you like this kind of look and you're getting something closer to this, it has to do with the tension of the wires that you're pulling while you're braiding. And that just takes a little practice. But I do find that the weight helps tremendously. Okay, so once you're done with all of your beads, I'm going to show you, I'm just going to go ahead and unclick all these here. So once your beads are done, you can take all of your stoppers off, or if you have them on bobbins, you can unroll the bobbin and let them kind of go and just be back to just the wire. Where did that little piece of tape come from? All right, I'm just gonna let what's left fall off. But you guys would keep going until you used up all of your beads. And then once your beads are all gone, you can take off your bead stoppers and just be back to braiding your wire. So now I have my 3 strands here. I know where I left off. So I'm gonna take this top strand and move it down and spin it and do the same pattern again with just the wire. So bottom left, top left, bottom right, top right, bottom right, and then twist counterclockwise. Bottom left, top right, bottom right, and turn. So then you'll continue this pattern again until you have another 2 1/4 inches of braid. So what I'm working on number-wise is I decided I want a 6 1/2 inch bracelet. And to make a 6 1/2 inch bracelet, I had to measure what this would be here. So when all my beads are on, my center is going to be 1 1/2 inches. And I had to measure that my clasp was going to take up about 1/2 inch. So that's 2 inches. And then I need to have another 4 1/2 inches. So if you divide that by 2, you've got 2 1/4 on this side of a braid. Then your beads take up your 1 1/2 inch. And then if you do 2 1/4 on this side as well, you'll have a full 6 inches here, and then 1/2 inch for your clasp. So that is how I figured out my math on that. So if you want to make a bracelet slightly smaller or slightly larger, just know that the numbers I'm working on are for a 6 1/2 inch bracelet, and that's giving 2 1/4 braid, 1 1/2 with beads, 2 1/4 braid again, and then 1/2 inch for my clasp. All right, so once you have this all braided up to where you want it size-wise, which for me would be 2 1/4. And you would use your little measuring tape to make sure you're staying on track with your size. So once you have everything all set, you can undo your weight. You can take your wires off your Kumihimo disc. And then if you have a bead stopper, you could leave that on there for right now. I would probably just take my cutter and trim off all my ends so that they're close in size. And then I would use the 3x3 crimp tube and push that down towards the end of my braid. So you'll see that's what I did on this example here. Is I have a copper 3x3 crimp tube on either side, pushed down towards the braid. And I'll just bring that up so you can see. And this is how you're going to secure the braid itself. So you're going to use the Mighty Crimper because you're using these 3x3 millimeter crimp tubes. You need the Mighty Crimper to handle that size. Your crimper has 2 notches, a back notch called your crimper, and then the front notch is called your rounder. You're going to set your crimp tube in the back notch just like that. Give it a squeeze, and it's going to create a divot on your crimp. Then you'll take it and turn it 90 degrees so your divot is facing out, and you're going to place that on the top notch, which is called your rounder. So you can see there my divot is facing out. And you'll give it another good squeeze. And then you can go around that rounder a couple of times. Just sort of pump, squeeze, pump, squeeze. And now this is really secure. And you'll do that on your other side as well. So place your crimp in the back notch of your mighty crimper, give it a squeeze. It'll create a divot. You'll turn it 90 degrees so your divot's now facing out. Put it back into that front notch and give it a squeeze. Okay, so now we've got our braid secure with our soft flex wires, and we want to connect to a clasp. So what I'm going to do is find a wire in the middle that's not bent real, one that looks nice and straight. So that one looks good. And I'm going to leave that one, and I'm going to trim off all of the others right at the top of the crimp. So we're just going to cut those wires. You could do it one at a time. You just want to make sure that you leave one wire standing. And you could also decide which color, if you use multiple colors, which color you want to leave standing. I think I'll go with this citrine one. Okay, so now you've got all of your wires crimped and then cut except for this one. And you'll do the same thing on the other side. And I left the same color on both sides, the citrine. And this is what you'll use to connect to your clasp. So now let me just find my little there's one of my 2mm crimps. There's another. And let me just find a clasp. I didn't pull a clasp out. I have a cute little copper heart clasp, so I'll use that. Okay, so now you just connect to your clasp like you would any other stringing design. I'm just going to come in here and get a little closer. You're going to string on your crimp tube. This is a 2 by 2mm. Then you'll string on your clasp. You'll make a loop back through your crimp tube. Slide it down. and slide it down till you're happy with the size. And then you can either use the regular crimping plier, which works just like the Mighty Crimper. It's got the two round notches, one crimper in the notch in the back, one rounder in the front. And you do the same process we did with the Mighty Crimp. Or you can use your magical crimping pliers, which turns your crimp tube into a small round bead. And to use this crimper, you've got a notch on either side. You want your crimp to sit right in the center of that notch. You give it one squeeze and it'll come out like a little ravioli with pinched corners. And then you turn it 90 degrees, place it back in that one notch again, give it another squeeze, go around, and there you have your little crimp bead. And then use your cutters to cut that off. And then on the other side, you can attach your other half of your clasp. You could attach a jump ring if you want a jump ring, or you could just make a loop straight from the wire. So go ahead and get your crimp in position. And just check that your loop works for your bracelet. And then again, I'm going to use the magical crimper, place the crimp inside that one notch, give it a squeeze, turn it 90 degrees, put it back inside that notch, give it another squeeze, and go all the way around. And that is how you finish a Kumihimo design with soft flex. Now you could just leave these crimps like that, or you can do a little wrapping. If you wanted to wrap up your crimps a little bit, you could do a little wrapping like this and cover up your crimp ends, or you can just leave it. And I don't know if I'll be able to clip it on right now, but that is how it looks when it's done. I'll just show you this example again. This was the one that was a necklace using the dragon scale beads and the dark blue lapis soft flex wire. Same pattern, same 8-strand round Kumihimo pattern on that one. To wrap, I would use 22 gauge or 24 gauge. I go back and forth between those two. I think this one was a 22 gauge that I had done here, but you could do 24 also. And this is another bracelet that you can find in Seabead Revolution that uses the Kumihimo, but it does, what are these called? Rizzo beads. These are the Rizzo beads. And this one I did the Kumihimo with beads the entire time, so you don't see the braided wire at all. That's sort of hidden in there. And then I did it with a cone bead, a little cone to cover up the crimps. So that's another alternative. If you wanted to cover up the crimps that way and add a little bead at the end before you put your clasp, you can do that too. All right, let me switch you guys back up. Hopefully, oh, there we go. So I hope you liked that tutorial today. Let me straighten myself out. It was fun to be able to show you guys how to Kumihimo with soft flex beading wire. And again, I used the medium 019 strand beading wire in red jasper and citrine. If you do like the colors and you want to buy a trio today, that was the Vitality trio, but we do have a whole bunch of other trio colors. So if you want to take a look at softflexcompany.com, go to the beading wire section, and in there you can see the multicolor trio packs. If you were to purchase one of those today, September 17th, we do have a special running where you will get a free Kumihimo disc, double density, with your order. All right, thank you guys so much for being here. It was a lot of fun, and if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments. I'll check them out and answer them as best I can. I'll see you again here next Monday for Free Spirit Beading. See you later.